Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, with it being Valentine's Day coming up this week, I figured why not do a story time about my worst date I've ever had. Now guys, this is not a tutorial. This is just me showing you how I took off a nail design and put a new one on without doing a fill. If you guys have any questions about the nail look, definitely let me know down below. And yeah, if you guys want to hear the story, then let's get into it. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a little backstory. When I was about 21, I was in a super toxic, terrible, stressful, just horrible relationship, and all of my friends and everybody who knew me knew I was in this relationship. So once it was over, everyone was so happy for me. They literally watched me flourish into, myself, and they were really proud of me and really just excited. So this is back when I was serving tables at a restaurant, and one day I'm at work and one of my coworkers, she's an older lady, she comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, hey Kristina." And I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" And she's like, "I'm good. I have a question for you." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "Oh, so I hear you're single, and are you looking to meet anybody new?" And I was like, honestly, I'm doing a lot of dating, getting to know people, so yeah, I don't see why not. So she starts to tell me how her boyfriend, who also worked at the restaurant, I feel like he was a lot older than she was. And she's like, "Oh, he has this son and he's really attractive." And I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, because I just couldn't picture, I just couldn't picture it. So she starts describing him, and she's like, "Yeah, he's got these beautiful blue eyes, dark hair, he's covered in tattoos, he's buff, he's just so good looking." And I was like, "Oh really? He sounds like he's good looking." And she's like, "Yeah, and I think you guys would look so good together. I think you guys would also get along together." And she's like, "Oh, are you interested in meeting him?" And I was like, "You know what, from what you told me, he sounds like he is attractive, and why not?" So I go ahead and tell her, like, "Hey, of course, like, I'm totally down to meet him, if anything, it's a date, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out." So then she's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna let him know that you're interested, because I told him about you, and then you guys can probably like meet up." And I was like, "Okay." So later on that day, she comes back and she's like, "Hey, so I told him it was good to go, and do you work this week? Because obviously I want him to come see you while you're working." And I was like, "Yeah, I work tomorrow." So the next day, she tells, like, she's there too, and she tells me, she's like, "Oh hey, so just so you know, he's coming in today and blah blah blah, but I have something to tell you before you see him." And I was like, "Okay, what's that?" And she's like, "Well, he just got out of prison." And I was like, "Prison? What?" And she's like, "Yeah, he just got out of prison, and I wasn't gonna tell you at first because I wanted him to tell you, but I just feel like it's something you should know before you agree to meet him." She's like, "He's coming today, but I can always tell him not to come. Like, I think he would understand." And I was like, "You know what? No, like, you already told him I would meet him, and I don't want to be rude. So I'll still meet him. If anything, like, it doesn't have to go anywhere." So I'm just sitting there at work, just waiting, working, and honestly, it was a really slow day. And all of a sudden, I see these two guys come in, and they come in, and they're like, the one guy has a presence about him to the point where she described him to a T. He was buff, he had lots of tattoos, he had bright blue eyes, he was a lot shorter than I think that I was expecting, but he also looked like he was from prison. Like, he gave off a very much like I'm on the yard kind of scenario. So whatever, I go over there, I talk to them, and he's like giving me compliments and telling me that he thinks that I'm beautiful, and he thinks that he really likes me and wants to take me out. And honestly, he was really, really nice. Like, he wasn't my type at all, but he was super, super nice. So I was like, "You know what, maybe I'll just give it a go." So we exchanged numbers, and so when I get home that day, he had texted me and he was like, "Hey, like, do you want to go out tomorrow? Like, would you be interested in going on a date with me?" And I was like, "You know what, it's fine. Like, I love going on dates. I love free food, so whatever." So I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Like, I get off work at 5, but like, I can be free around like 7. I want to go home and like change or whatever. So he's like, "Okay, that's fine." So literally the next day, I get off work And I'm like, hey, are we still down to hang out at 7? And he's like, well, actually, I can't hang out with you. He's like, I can hang out with you at 7, but we can't go anywhere because I have an ankle monitor and I have to be home by 7:30. And I was like, oh God, like, okay, I guess. So then he's like, well, I mean, I still want to hang out with you. Like, would it be possible if you just come over here and like we made dinner? You can come eat dinner with us and it'll be cool. Because mind you, he didn't have anywhere to go because he was staying with, you know, his dad and his girlfriend. So I was like, okay, it's not a big deal. So then I was like, well, what time can you come pick me up? And he's like, oh, well, I don't have a car. I just got out of jail. Just got out of prison. So I can order you a taxi. And I live in a small town, and this was before Uber, so it wasn't weird for someone to order you a taxi, but it was nice that he had offered to pay for it. So I get to the house, and it's a really small place, like super tiny, definitely not meant for 4 of us to be there. And so we're eating, we have some food, we're getting to know each other, we're sitting down, and like, you know, he was pretty much being like, you know, oh, like just talking to me and telling me about prison. And because I'd asked him, I was like, hey, so why did you go to prison? And he was like, oh, well, actually, you know, I was kind of like in a situation to where I was like the getaway driver for a robbery. And I was like, oh, okay. So then he's like, yeah, like things just kind of went wrong and that's just what happened. And I was like, well, how long have you been in prison for? And he was like, for 6 years. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was in middle school when you went to prison. Like it just was like really weird for me. So, and mind you, he was older than me. I think he was probably like maybe like 6-7 years older than me at the time, maybe older, maybe like I think he might have been like 9 years older than me. I can't remember. But anyway, so we're sitting there and, you know, we're just chatting, get to know each other. And he like offers to like give me a tattoo because he has like this tattoo kit. And I was like, no, like it's okay. Like I'm good. But it was cool because he told me like the whole process of like going to being in prison and how they do tattoos without like a tattoo machine, and like how you use like a guitar string to give tattoos. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, you know, things that I didn't think that I needed to know, but this is cool that you're telling me. So we're sitting there and he had a couple drinks and I had about like a drink, and he starts getting really tipsy, really slurring, really being strange. And I was like, oh my God, like this is too much. And I think it's because maybe in prison he wasn't really drinking, so I think he just got tipsy really fast. So he starts telling me like, oh, I think you're so beautiful and I really just want to kiss you and touch you and all of this. He's like, it's been so long and I haven't, you know, done those things and I just can't like help myself. And I was like, you know what, no, like I'm not that kind of girl. Like I don't feel comfortable, like it's the first date, and also your dad and stepmom are literally in the same room as us but just like a little ways away. So I was like, no, that's weird. So he starts being like, please, and like begging me and asking me, and I was like, no. So literally he gets up to go get another drink, and I text my best friend and I'm like, hey, please come pick me up. I send him the address. I'm like, I can't do it. This guy is like wasted and he's being so weird. So literally he comes back from the bathroom and he's like still asking me like, hey, can I just kiss you? Can I just smell you? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, like, I just need to smell you like intimately. And I was like, okay, I can't do this. This is way too much for me. And I was like, you know, my friend's coming soon because I do have to go home. Like it's getting really late. And so he was understandable, like he didn't get aggressive. He was like, okay, like I really just loved hanging out with you and I want to hang out with you again. And I was like, yeah, sure, totally, yeah, sometime. So my friend's like, oh, I'm outside, because he lived right around the corner, so he got there super fast, thank God. And so I'm like, okay, hey, like my friend's outside, like I gotta go, but like it was nice like hanging out with you, meeting you, whatever. So I go to get up and he's like, well, let me walk you out. He goes to get up and he literally falls on the floor. But on the way from the floor, he tries to grab onto the TV, and it was like one of those like slightly older TVs that were like big and boxy, so it had like three lit candles on it. and literally one of the candles falls and hits the floor. I like sprint to go run and pick it up before the house catches on fire. And so I literally blow the candle out. He's still on the floor and I'm like, oh my god, I can't. So I was like, are you okay? And he like just lays there and he's like, yeah, like no, I can get up, like let me just walk you out. And I was like, no, it's fine. So literally, you guys, I run down I leave, open the door, I like sprint down the stairs, and I get in the car with my best friend. I'm just like, what was that? Like, I start telling him about everything and we're both just like dying laughing because it was crazy. But yes, that is the worst date that I've ever been on. Him and I never, like, he hit me up like the next day and like wanted to still hang out, and I was just like, no, like I cannot, like this was crazy. I literally was like, I just can't, like I'm not interested. And he took it really well. He like went and started a family. So yeah, guys, that was the worst date that I ever had. It was definitely like so cringy and gross, and like just the way that he was talking to me, I just couldn't like believe it. But yeah, that was the worst date I've been on. I love you guys. I hope you have a happy Valentine's Day. And don't forget, my next video, we're going to be doing the giveaway winner. So I'll see you guys there. Bye.